Auburn is expecting big things from Jackson Arnold next season, but who's going to protect him? Welcome on into the Auburn Express, powered by the War Report. I'm your host, Mike G, and thank you so much for giving us one of your sports listens today. Joining me, as he does, and everything War Report related, is my good friend Ike Jones to talk a little Auburn football. Before we get started, just want to let everybody know, if you're watching this on replay and you want to support the content we're doing like you do on the lives, just go to the comment section and hit that super thanks button for us. We appreciate you guys for helping support our content, keep the work that we're doing here going. Let's get into it. Auburn is expecting big things from Jackson Arnold this year. As a matter of fact, on a previous segment, you and I talked about this young man going north of 3,000 yards passing, north of 20 touchdowns, less single-digit interceptions. Those are lofty goals, and they're easier when you have protection. We're going to take a look today at that offensive line and what it potentially looks like game 1, August 29th versus Baylor. But Ike, talk to me, man. Is this offensive line going to be better than last year's offensive line? I know those guys weren't perfect. They did a serviceable job in some aspects, but still, I think all would agree pass protection is a little behind where Auburn would like it to be.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that Auburn got better up front. As you said, the offensive line last year wasn't perfect, but I think that they were good, probably more middle of the pack than anything. But I think if Auburn can find a way with their offensive line to get them some rhythm and stay on the field a little bit, and allow them to go out there and be a little bit more aggressive with run stuff. I mean, these guys, listen, man, offensive line will tell me they like to run block, because a run blocking is more forward and it's more like you get the man, but you got to earn the right to be able to do some of that stuff. And I think Auburn just needs to give them some more opportunities to get out there and get the physicality going. But yeah, I think that they can be a better group this season.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch what that line is going to be able to do. Now, what does that look like? We know that they had some pickups this offseason, and we're going to break this down here. I'm going to get your thoughts on Auburn's potential starting offensive line. Now, we put this graphic out on social media. Follow us on Instagram if you haven't seen this. But this is the projected started offensive line. Some familiar faces here and some new faces. Let's start with the familiar ones. Dillon Wade. This is a guy that when we sat down with our good friend Cole Kubelik over there at Cube and Mac and Cube, that he really liked. Thought he had NFL potential. As a matter of fact, Dillon sat down with us at a fireside with Gunnar Britton and some of the other guys to talk about where he was at in his development. Coach Thornton has been on him. This has to be the year that Dillon Wade kind of comes into his own, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Dillon Wade, third year now at Auburn. I think this is the time for him. It's going to be his second season playing the guard spot. So he came in as a tackle, right? And he had to play a little bit of tackle last season because of some injury stuff and, trying to be available to do whatever Auburn needed. But as far as the pro profile for him, the tackle spot just doesn't fit because of his size. So they moved him inside to a more natural fit from a physical standpoint. And it was a difference for him because when he was at Tulsa before coming to Auburn, he was a tackle his entire career, right? And so it definitely is something that he has to learn, but he did admirably last year. He's just got to figure out how to come along a little bit more. But I think that he provides a leadership up front, right? He's one of the more senior guys on that offensive line that they're going to need to be able to hit the ground running game 1 versus Baylor.
Yeah, again, a lot of guys, Auburn needs him to make the jump this year if they want to be a solid offensive line. Now, when we're talking about Dillon Wade last year, he graded out at a 67.1 overall on offense. He was a little better in run blocking. You mentioned those guys liking run blocking than he was in pass blocking. PFF gave him a grade of 70.7 on the season in pass blocking. I'm sorry, in run blocking, and 62.4 in pass blocking. So there's some work to be done there on the pass blocking game for Mr. Dillon Wade. Moving right along here and going back to our list, I want to talk about Connor Lew, the freshman that made a splash last year. Auburn seemingly got a jolt of energy when Connor Lew took the field. He will be the second quarterback on the field. How are you feeling about Connor Lew anchoring the offense there at center?
Yeah, I mean, Connor Lew is a guy that he has the ability to be an all SEC caliber player. Last year, his first year as the starter, and he's going to come into this season having that experience now as an SEC starter to really make his way because he's a guy that people are expecting to get up out of here, go to the NFL draft, and he needs to have a very solid season to do that kind of thing. When he came in that first year, um, as you said, kind of in reserve duty, and then and eventually earned the starting spot. He was a breath of fresh air. That now is the time for him to kind of take that spot and be the guy. He's been touted by his coaches as an excellent communicator, as a guy who knows how to get people lined up properly. Now he just needs to be a little bit more dominant from a physicality standpoint out there and really be a people mover up front. Particularly in his ability to pass protect and understand kind of the twist and stunt games that they want to play up front.
Yeah, Connor Lew definitely was a dude there on offense for him. It's what you want to see from freshmen, right? They come in, they come along quickly, they earn a starting spot. He got his chance. He certainly took advantage of it. This year could be a big jump, and for a lot of players, they say one of the biggest jumps that you make in your career is from year one to year two. You see players make a huge leap. Connor Lew set there for a breakout season on the offensive line. Coming at back here, I want to talk about Jeremiah Wright. Uh, how do you feel about Mr. Wright? I got mixed
Uh,
feelings, but I'm gonna let you start on this one.
I mean, Jeremiah Wright again is a guy from a physical standpoint. He's super dominant up there. Um, he needs to figure out some stuff with his technique a little bit to make him more consistent, particularly in how he pass sets. But his physicality is undeniable. I love when Jeremiah Wright is in that mode and he is really out there dominating the player that's in front of him. I want to see that a little bit more. He again is one of those guys. I think when they're out there and they're in that run, we're gonna we're going to run the football. Doesn't really matter what you line up in. He's a guy that relishes that opportunity, and hopefully Auburn will give him that chance a little bit this season and just let him play behind his pads a little bit. He's had injury concerns, of course, throughout his career at Auburn, but
Yeah.
physically, I think that he's a gifted specimen out there, and I'm looking forward to a final year from him that's going to look something completely different than what it's looked like in the previous seasons.
I'm going to jump back here, Ike. I neglected to mention Connor Lew received a 73.4 run blocking grade from PFF. He received a 79.9, let's just call it 80, an 80 pass blocking grade from PFF, Auburn's highest graded lineman in pass blocking last year.
Yeah.
Now, jumping down here to Jeremiah Wright, he received a grade of 60.8 in the run game. Going to need to make some improvements there, 73.4 in pass blocking. So certainly he's got room to improve, on both sides of the ball there. But experience should pay off. Again, should see a big jump for him this year as well, too. Let's get to the next guy on our list. Xavier Chaplin transfers in from Virginia Tech. Look, he got there in the spring, and whenever a guy transfers in, it is projected to start, even if it's in the spring. Certainly, big things will be expected. Talk to me about Mr. Xavier Chaplin. He received a season grade from PFF of 70.4 in run blocking, 72.7 in pass blocking. Solid on both ends. His experience should pay dividends for Auburn. Xavier Chaplin projected to be on Auburn's starting offensive line game one.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Auburn has not had solid offensive tackle play in a while, right? Consistent solid because Xavier Miller when he was healthy last year, and we'll talk a little bit about him when we get into the other tackle spot that's out there. When he was healthy, he was good in his second season with Auburn, but Chaplin's a guy who's been successful at protecting quarterbacks for a few seasons now at a Power 4 program. You looked at the PFF grades, like for all the ones that you named for Auburn, it was like they're good at this one thing, and then they're kind of there's a lot of room for improvement. Chaplin's pretty solid across the board at both of those things. And again, he's had the Power 4 experience for multiple seasons, being able to do that at Virginia Tech. I like where Auburn is with their offensive line with the addition of Chaplin, because again, the interior offensive line has been good, not great, but good for Auburn. When you add tackles that can be able to slow down some of these prolific pass rushers that you're going to see week in and week out of the SEC, you put yourself in a much better position, particularly with a quarterback who last year did not have that, right? Jackson Arnold just didn't have guys that were protecting his blind side. Now he's got a blind side protector that has done well at the Power 4 level. If they can play well as a unit, Chaplin's going to be a crucial piece to making sure Jackson Arnold stays inside that pocket and is able to deliver the ball to those receivers.
Let's get to the last guy on our list. Mr. Mason Murphy transfers in from USC. Again, I mentioned every time a guy transfers in is projected to start immediately, and he's not taking a snap on the Plains. Some big things will be expected. So he'll be a part of Auburn's new look offensive line. You've got three guys here who, were there, and then you add two pieces that hopefully will add a lot of depth for you. If these guys as a unit collectively can stay healthy, I think we'll see some great things for them. What do you like about Mason Murphy?
Listen, Murphy is a guy who came in with mixed results. I mentioned I was going to go back to the whole Xavier Miller thing. This is probably, when we get into fall, going to be one of the more hotly contested battles because Miller has the starting SEC experience. Murphy has performed really well when he was playing at the tackle spot, struggled a little bit when he had to move around a little bit at USC, and just wasn't as effective moving away from that right tackle spot. Moving back to that with Chaplin being able to be the left tackle, I think is going to pay dividends for him. But I think that that's going to be an ongoing battle between Murphy and Miller as to who's going to be the right tackle consistently. Again, Miller battled through some injury stuff, but I do think Murphy has the stuff to be. That's why right now I've got him slated as the starting tackle for Auburn, but that could absolutely change because I'm not counting out Xavier Miller, who made the decision to come back to Auburn for that final season. So I like Murphy a lot, though. If we're looking at the tape, Green Name Gang, I got y'all on this Murphy tape. I got some tape for y'all, but I liked what I saw on the tape from him. But he and Miller, I think, they're 1A and 1B right now for that other tackle spot.
Okay. Looking again at his season grades, PFF gave him a 60.4 in run blocking, 58.2 in pass blocking. So talent there, room for improvement.
But
Mason
again, if you parse that down, though, and you look at the games where he was playing at tackle, at the right tackle spot, he played much better in those games. And so I think that moving back to the tackle is going to pay some dividends for him.
Yeah, it looks like, again, received some really high grades versus Rutgers and Maryland. Is two of his best games of the season. Played pretty well against Nebraska as well, too. And then he had a decent game versus Notre Dame to end the season. So certainly you can see there where maybe if they were moving him back and forth, if you're out of position, sometimes those grades will go down. That's not always reflected here on what we see. But let's take one more look at the list before we get to the break. Xavier Chaplin, Dylan Wade, Connor Lew, Jeremiah Wright, and Mason Murphy, Auburn's potential starting line come game one. The guys that will make or break Jackson Arnold. But will they truly make or break Jackson Arnold? Or is there a plan? Is there a scheme that will get Auburn through if the offensive line falters? We'll talk about that after a quick word from our sponsors, our friends at Golden's Cast Iron. Visit goldenscastiron.com and use code REPORT to get 15% off your weights and code TWR for $65 off fire pits and Kamado Grills. Golden's Cast Iron. It's the spring. You want to be outside with your family making memories this spring and summer. Golden's Cast Iron can help you do that. Work out, grill out, chill out with Golden's Cast Iron. Also, our friends at the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com. Use code REPORT to get 15% off that Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has something that has you covered. Boss getting on your nerves? Don't slap them. Get something from the Rogue Shop. Girl getting on your nerves? Dump her. And get something from the Rogue Shop. TheRogueShop.com. Solving problems in many different kind of ways. And our friends at the Vibe Vault. Not just barbers, lifestyle consultants. You can find them at 3462 Crosswinds Road, Suite I in Phoenix City, Alabama. My guy, Steve Watkins, helping keep the community fresh. Let's jump back into the conversation here. Look, it seems like for years and years and years, every time an Auburn quarterback has faltered, fans have said, if our offensive line wasn't so terrible, we could have an offense. I have always felt strongly that when your offensive line is not great in pass blocking, if you have a quarterback that's accurate enough and quick triggered enough, there is a scheme where you can scheme around a bad pass blocking offensive line. Now, that requires receivers to run precise routes and pretty good ball placement from your QB. But if Auburn's offensive line falters in pass blocking this year, what do you see from Hugh Freeze here? I mean, I'm giving them a pass on run blocking. I feel like they're going to be pretty good run blocking as a unit. We haven't seen anything in recent years to suggest that they can't run block. So I'm giving them that pass. Pass blocking has been the bugaboo. What do you think about pass blocking here? And you've got two quarterbacks potentially that can make things with their legs in case pass blocking breaks down and keep plays alive.
Well, three, really. Ashton Daniels has that ability as well. But yeah, to your point, the pass blocking has been left something to be desired. Let's just say that. And, I think there's going to be improvement in that because there's better depth this year with your ability now. Again, I talked about the battle at right tackle. So you've got two solid guys that can play there. And then with Wade still being on the team and his ability to kick out to that tackle position, should Chaplin falter for whatever reason, I like your depth of being able to do that sort of thing. And then on the interior offensive line, I think that you've got multiple guys that haven't had a lot of experience, guys like Dre Carter, right, that are in there in that interior offensive line, Tate Johnson that are there that can step in and play if need be. I'm looking forward to them doing better. But to the question about what is Coach Freeze going to do if it doesn't happen, right? Like if Coach Freeze sees, man, we're not blocking them well up front, that is where some of the quick passing game has to be, to your point, efficient. Like you've got to be on point with the timing of how you're going to be delivering the ball from quarterback and being where you're supposed to be with your wide receiver routes. And then lastly, something that Auburn struggled with, and particularly more so in the first season, got a little bit better in that second season, exterior blocking, right? Throwing those screens are great. If you don't block it up, it's easy for DBs to blow that kind of stuff up. But if you block it well and you've got the numbers because you made the decision, all right, we only got 3 DBs out here on this side, and we got 3 wide receivers. This is a perfect time to throw a little bubble screen with the safety over the top. Cool. Let's throw that. You got to block it at the point of attack because you have the dynamic pass catchers that can get upfield and make guys miss. It's going to some precision is going to be necessary to be able to do that.
Interestingly enough, Ike, Auburn's worst pass blocking game of the year was versus Kentucky. They were at Kentucky. And the Tigers won that game 24-10, but they gave up 4 sacks, 5 hurries, and 9 pressures in that game. They graded out, let me go back here because the number was astounding. They graded out as a 30.6 as a unit in pass blocking. That number could not be redder on the stat sheet. Like there's a special red for how bad they were pass blocking in that game. Conversely, right, like they were 73.9 pass blocking in that one. And you and I both know how that game went in the run game. It was one of Jarquez Hunter's better games of the season, if not his best game of the season.
It was a career day for him. They had like 278 yards or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, he was a monster in that one. Certainly Auburn just ran wild, and it sparked the why don't we run the ball more conversation. Right. Why aren't we running the ball more? Why isn't Jarquez getting 20 touches a game? A lot of fans wanted to know after that Kentucky game. Felt like it was a no-brainer to kind of stick with that, with that strategy there. But I did want to point out as a unit, that was their worst game pass blocking. You know why? You're not going to win many games where you pass block that badly. I would say that if not for Jarquez's kind of like heroic performance in that one, it would have been a rough game for Auburn. I think. Right?
But the one thing about that though is they just did it didn't work early in the pass game, but once they found the run game, they just kind of stuck with it, and they didn't get many opportunities to make the pass blocking grade get better. Like it was bad early, and they were just like, all right, we're just not gonna throw the ball no more. And the run game was working so well, it's like, well, we don't need to improve the pass game. Just keep running the ball, despite Hugh Freeze's like itchy trigger finger around the pass button. When I don't play video games, but if I did play video games, whatever the button was to select pass, he kept like, okay, or we'll hit run one more time. But yeah, I think that that unit as a whole was decent, right? Like if you look at how they graded out versus the conference last season in run blocking, PFF lists Auburn's run blocking on the season last year, regular season only. I'm looking at this, fifth in the conference at a 68.5 overall.
Yeah.
Their pass blocking in the conference was seventh at 70.1, right? So they're middle of the pack pass block. And this is what I mean when I say that, like, they weren't as bad as you think they were. In your mind, you're like, oh, they were so terrible. And it's like, well, if you trust the grades from the people who do the gradings as a unit, they were just okay. They weren't terrible. They weren't great. They were okay. So the blocking was not the core of the issue. It wasn't great. It didn't help you get past a bunch of other stuff, but it wasn't the core of the issue. And I think that those guys get blamed a little too much sometimes.
Yeah, Jarquez Hunter in that game, 278 yards rushing on 23 attempts. That's 12.1 yards per attempt, with 2 touchdowns to boot. Just the kind of game you hope you see from him every single game. But to your point, they just it was working and they kind of stuck with it. It's not always going to work to the tune of 12.1 yards per attempt. So certainly Auburn is going to need a plan there. Now, I do want to talk about the pass game here because we've been talking a lot about pass blocking for Auburn on the season. One of the numbers that we like to look at is the pressure rate. This is one of the better statistical specialty stats that PFF gets, that we use to kind of see how well is that offensive line doing, how well is your quarterback doing at avoiding pressure in the pocket. They account for that in their kept clean rate, which was 70.3 on the season. He was under pressure, Payton Thorne, 29.7% of his dropbacks. That's just a little below average. The average in the SEC over the last couple of years has been right in that 25 to 26% pressure range. So he was about 3% worse there in the pass blocking. But, staying on your feet 70.3% of your dropbacks is actually pretty average. And I think, like you said, they were rated 7th in the conference. So that supports that statistic there, to let you know that there are 16 teams in the conference. So there were 9 teams worse than Auburn in pass blocking last year.
And not surprisingly, one of those teams was Oklahoma. Oklahoma was terrible last year. They were 14th in the conference in pass blocking rating. Again, he is getting into a vastly better situation as far. And again, that's not because they weren't talented. They were injured up front, but the product on the field is what it was, right? And so that is indicative of some of the performances that you see from both of their quarterbacks, not just Jackson Arnold. They had trouble moving the football as a unit, regardless who was under center last season at Oklahoma. And he is getting into a better situation, at least on paper, right now at Auburn, when you look at the PFF grades. But yeah, and now credit to Payton Thorne and his ability to avoid pressure sometimes, that he was able to stay out of sacks in some of those scenarios. But I think with the arm talent that you have with Jackson Arnold, his ability to have a quick release, the question is whether or not he's going to make the decisions quickly enough. If he makes decisions quickly enough and he can get the ball out, then he's going to be in a good situation, because we've mentioned it, and I'm going to continue to mention it. You've got receivers that can make those catches. SEC Open, this is a thing Keandre Lambert-Smith said often about his quarterback, and Payton Thorne did it to his credit in that Texas A&M game. He's like, man, just listen, throw me the ball. I'll go get it. And you have enough guys that you should have the confidence to say, look, throw me the ball. I will go get it. I don't care if he's in my hip pocket. I'll go get it. If you put it in the air in my vicinity, that's my ball. Did you see? This is completely not football related, but did you see 2 games ago when the Warriors won the game? Now, they lost this last game embarrassingly, but the game before that, when the Warriors won, Draymond Green gets the big stop, and the rebound goes up. Jimmy Butler goes up and grabs the board, and then he gets fouled, and he walks over and he looks at the bench and he said, my rebound, that's my board. right? That's the kind of thing that you have to have. Like,
Yeah.
receivers need to have that. Balls in the air, that's mine. If it's in the air around me, this is my football. Like, I don't care. Auburn's got those kind of dudes. Just trust him to go get it, man. And that's what Jackson Arnold has to be able to do, make quick decisions. If they give him a little time, I think that they have a recipe to be able to do that sort of thing this season.
Yeah, speaking of time, one of the other stats that PFF keeps is time to throw, right? How much time does it take to get the ball out of the quarterback's hands after the snap? You want to see that number under 2.5 seconds. If you're holding the ball much longer than that in this league and you don't have legs, it's usually a disaster, right? And so when you know, that's kind of backed up by the fact that when you look at on the plays that are blocked cleanly, when Peyton Thorne was kept clean, he had the ball out of his hands in an average of 2.3 seconds. Under pressure, that number extended to 3.86 seconds. And he had a completion rate of only 34% when under pressure. So if you can block it cleanly, they can see the field, they trust their offensive line, you get the ball out of your hands quickly, and bam, that completion percentage was 70% when kept clean.
Yeah.
It's really, really important that these quarterbacks are given the time and kept on their feet, because I'm telling you, when you look at the under pressure stat and what their completion percentage is for even the best quarterbacks, it is below 50%. It is rare to see a quarterback complete more than 50% of his passes under pressure.
Yeah.
Right?
The one thing I do like about Jackson Arnold, I know this is about the offensive line, is he does actually improvise really well. When he has to escape the pocket and throw on the run, he does that really well because he has that superior arm strength. Now, he does get himself in trouble a little bit when he's trying to be a little too fancy out there, but I do like his improvisation skills as a quarterback.
Yeah, he is. Speaking of improvisation, again, I want to make one more statistical comparison before we get out of here today. When we talk about how those quarterbacks do under pressure, Joe Burrow was one of the better quarterbacks in college football under pressure. In his Heisman campaign, he was 66.4% under pressure. That would be a good completion percentage for a season for most quarterbacks.
Yeah, right? I mean, we had talking points all offseason about Peyton Thorne. Can he get above 65% on the season?
Joe Burrow did it under pressure, and he was under pressure 30% of his dropbacks that season. I mean, I don't think people realize how much pressure he was under. They were a below average line, and they gave up 36 sacks on Joe Burrow in his Heisman campaign, where he threw for like almost 6,000 yards and 60 touchdowns. When he was kept clean, 79.3, call it 80%, nearly 80% completion percentage. The other statistical comparison I want to make is another LSU guy who won the Heisman, and that's Jaden Daniels. Now, we all know what happened last year. He obviously won the Heisman in emphatic fashion. Under pressure, he was 50%. Right. And when he came in, he was 47%. So he's always been good under pressure. Right. But I talked about that 50% number. Anything around 50 is actually pretty good, because most quarterbacks are well below 50 when under pressure. He was kept clean on 74.5% of his dropbacks. So he had better protection than Joe Burrow did. Under pressure only 25.5% of the time. And he was 74.8% when kept clean. I'm telling you, these guys, the better quarterbacks in this league, are deadly when they're given time to throw.
Yeah.
So if Auburn can give Jackson Arnold that kind of time to throw, I think he can be in the high 60s. And if he can be anywhere around 50% while under pressure, Auburn's going to have a really, really good season in the pass game.
Yeah, no, I agree, because listen, if you're accurate under pressure, that means those other teams are either blitzing guys, right? If you're doing a good job up front, that means they had to bring some extra guys into the situation, which means there are less guys in that defensive backfield, and your receivers have time to get open. And with the speed and the athleticism that you have in that receiver room, man, that could turn into a lot of tail lights out there and DBs chasing for a long time on plays. So listen, it's difficult not to bug when you live in the fantasy land of metrics in the
Yeah,
preseason. But when you're in this what if, or what if they could do this? But listen, if they do, it gets real. It gets real scary. It gets real
it does.
scary.
It does. Look, at the end of the day, Auburn has a chance to do something special this season, right? We said it 1,000 times on the show. Hugh Freeze has stacked the deck around the QB and said, "I'm going to give you the best offensive line I can, the best receivers I can, the best running backs I can, the best tight ends I can, and I'm going to make sure that if you fail, you have done a spectacular job at such." And
Yeah.
that's where I don't think that's where Peyton Thorne was his first year at Auburn. They were working on it his second year at Auburn, but year 3 is the manifestation of those efforts. And then hopefully, when it's time for Deuce Knight, he is that transcendent guy where you have the deck stacked around a generational QB, because that's when you get Heisman's.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, those are the things that Heisman's are made of. The two guys that I compare, statistical comparisons I made, those QBs were generational talents with the deck stacked around them. And we saw records broken. So can Auburn do that? Can you stack the deck enough and then find a generational talent at QB and get some records made? I think it's why we celebrate Cam Newton so much. He did it, and he did not have the deck stacked around him. He had a very good senior offensive line, but there wasn't a single other offensive draft pick on that team.
Yeah.
That was the Cam Newton, Nick Fairley show, man. It's rare. We might never see anything in college football like it again, Ike. You can't depend on that. And this is what Hugh Freeze's mission is, right? Getting Auburn out of this place where whenever they have a good season, it's a miracle and not expected. So making winning the expectation is the charge Hugh Freeze has as coach. Look, they've stacked the deck around Jackson Arnold. We stacked the deck here at the War Report. We'll be back at you guys Sunday with the weekend tailgate. So we're going to get out of here. But before we go, I want to thank you guys for watching this video. Do us a favor, hit that comment section and hit that super thanks button if you want to keep the work that we're doing here going. As always, if you like this content, please hit like and subscribe. We are the War Report on every social media platform. TW Report on TikTok. We're signing off, and as always, Warrior.